Welcome to Central News for Thursday the 11th of July. I'm Hilary Entwistle. In today's news, local body elections are coming up on October the 12th and the campaigning starts in a fortnight. But there may not be much to campaign about in Hamilton. Mayor Julie Hardacre says they have 5 councillors leaving and want more people to stand for the wards of Hamilton City Council. The Mayor says there is a meeting next Tuesday, the 16th of July, and she is urging anyone interested to attend.
So next week, next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, our electoral officer here, Jude Pani, will be running some information evenings for people who are interested in being candidates in the Hamilton local government elections. So that's at 7 o'clock in the reception lounge here at the council building. And as I understand it, the presentation will be about what does it involve? What's it like being a councillor? What do I have to do? What do I have to know? And what's the work about? How much time commitment? All those sorts of things. So we're encouraging people to come along and learn what it's all about and see if it's of interest to them.
Top New Zealand whitewater kayakers Luca Jones and Mike Dawson have kick-started their Olympic campaigns 3 years out from the Rio de Janeiro Games. The top Kiwi pair have just finished the opening rounds of the World Cup circuit in Europe, grabbing a series of semi-final finishes as they build into their seasons. Dawson's rebuild has been more of a physical one after breaking his back in an extreme race at the end of last year and spending 4 months out of his boat over summer. The 26-year-old finished 29th in the Cardiff World Cup, 24th in Augsburg, Germany, and 27th in the just completed round in Spain, expressing surprise at his consistency. Now, for our region's weather, Hamilton, your Friday will have a few showers with a southeasterly. Your expected high is 13 and an overnight low of 5. Tauranga, your Friday will be overcast with an occasional shower. Your expected high is 14 and an overnight low of 8. Just ahead, Mowal and its new management. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. A new Memorandum of Understanding means Mowal, otherwise known as Mount Maunganui, will be jointly managed by Tauranga City Council and the Mowal Trust. I caught up with Mowal Trust spokesperson Te Awanui Black. So tell us about the new Mowal Trust.
The intended new arrangements, the trust itself remains the same. So back in 2007, when the ownership of Mowal was returned to the 3 tribal groups here, to Ngāi Te Rangi, Ngāti Ranginui and Ngāti Pūkenga, the trust was established whereby each iwi had 2 trustees appointed and also alternates who were able to fill in and also as part of a succession planning. So the trust itself hasn't changed, and the people that are appointed as trustees to the trust, that will remain the same. The new arrangements as agreed, but that we are yet to formalise, if you like, will see the establishment of another board, a group who will, where the trust appoints 4 members and the Tauranga City Council appoints 4 members to that group, and that group will take charge of the management arrangements and agreeing to things like a management plan. And so at the moment there's a steering group that's in place that sort of has a similar function, but this way there is more of a, if you like, a treaty arrangement, partnership arrangement with the local governance, with local authorities and with iwi here. And then there's of course the operations that will be guided by that group.
And what was the process to get to there?
The process to get to this point was fairly complex in many ways. First of all, it was clarifying, there was a lot of clarity that needed to be sought from a legal standpoint in terms of the the trust itself, its relationship with, for instance, the Department of Conservation, the Minister of Conservation, because Mauao was still a historic reserve, and under that piece of legislation, it means that the Minister of Conservation still has a very critical role in it all. So that had to be clarified. Second of all, there had to be an arrangement that was properly researched and that took into consideration a whole raft of matters, because as you can appreciate, the co-governance, co-management arrangements with Tauranga City Council, who are there on behalf of the ratepayers of Tauranga City. We had to make sure that from the iwi side, iwi were comfortable with the proposition, and also, of course, the councillors. So we've been involved in this for quite some time now, and I think it was back in March of last year, 2012, we made a presentation to full council at that time, and at that time there was agreement from all councillors, agreement in principle, and so it's taken a year from that point, roughly to this point, to come to a happy medium, I suppose might be the way to put it.
And who will those councillors, those 4 councillor members be and the 4 iwi members be?
Well, that's still to be decided yet. So, for instance, the trust, the councillors agreed again in principle based on a number of recommendations, all of which I must say actually improved the what we'd proposed. It was actually very good. The trust also has to agree to that, and then from that point on, it'll be after that we look at who's going to be appointed to this new group. Of course, once it's all agreed, then it has to go to legislation, and once it's been legislated, then it will become permanent.
And what will the Memorandum of Understanding mean?
The Memorandum of Understanding is essentially the agreement, if you like, between the Trust and the City Council, which sets out the relationship. Yep, sets out the relationship and who's going to do what, and who's going to pay for what, and who make the decisions about these sorts of things. So it's the document itself is fairly complex as well, as you'd appreciate. But at the end of the day, it's an agreement to work together for the betterment of this maunga of ours, which sees close to 1 million people every year walk around it.
What are the obligations under the treaty?
Obligations under the treaty, I think, have been clarified. First of all, is that the owners of this mountain are the Ngāti Pūkenga, Ngāti Ranginui, and Ngaitirangi. First and foremost. Second of all, is that there is the co-governance, co-management treaty arrangement is that we agree to that, that we will make this mountain available to the public forever and a day, pretty much, and that as part of councillors on behalf of the community will contribute in their way.
We discuss next week with Te Awanui about free access and the myth of Mauao. Coming up next, Tsunami Survive Plan. Welcome back. Tauranga City Council has been told it should include any tsunami risk on a property's limb and PIM report if there is credible information about the risk. The tsunami risk issue originates with Smart Growth partner, the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, which has included tsunami risks in the regional policy statement. The RPS proposes grading tsunami risks as acceptable, tolerable and intolerable, but doesn't define the concepts of acceptable, tolerable or intolerable, risk or how they are to be derived scientifically. We decided now would be a good time to look back at our interview with the Council about their Tsunami Survive strategy. How much are we at risk of a tsunami in Tauranga?
Yeah, in Tauranga, and I'll use this map that's been prepared by NIWA to explain our risk, that it's the sort of starting with the map, if you take the ocean and take all the water out and change depth to colour, it shows what the ocean bed is like around New Zealand. So this deep blue around here is the abyss, which is about 5-6 kilometres down. The orange is about 1 kilometre down, and there's the Chatham Islands, and that's the Chatham Rise, which people talk about. So you've got the areas around here. Our main source of tsunami is the Kermadec Trench, which comes down from Samoa, down past East Cape, then it changes the Hikurangi Trench, across the Kaikoura, goes through the Southern Alps, and then carries on down here. And that trench is created by two plates of the Earth colliding, and they're colliding at a good rate. And around here it's about 5.5 metres every century. Up there it's about 7.5 metres every century. So I'm over 50 years old. So in my lifetime, those plates have moved together about 3.5 metres, which is quite a lot of movement. So because they're hitting, something's got to give. And what happens is one gets forced underneath the other, and they get forced together, and eventually it builds up so much tension it releases with a big upward flick. And it's that big upward flick that creates a big tsunami. So with this one here, if the trench is coming together, that trench is about up to 10 kilometres deep. And if you're looking there, so you've got about 9 kilometres of height difference between the two, which is huge. It's really, really deep. Compare that with Mount Cook, that's about, 3 kilometres, just over 3 kilometres high, and that's just a little wee peak. So that's our big feature, and that's moving and grinding together. And that's what makes New Zealand, New Zealand. And it's created us. And apart from these tsunamis, that's what gives us all our major energy for earthquakes. So everything's moving in New Zealand. It's a creaking and groaning country. And it's been forced around. You've got things, because it's not coming in square, East Cape has been forced out from the rest of New Zealand, North Island, by about 1.5 metres every century. So between Matata and Whakatane, it's been pulled apart by about 1.5 metres every century, and that bit's been pushed down. And the other thing, so you got your earthquakes. So in terms of earthquakes, tsunamis are mainly earthquakes. In New Zealand, an earthquake anywhere, any time, because it's a dynamic country. And once the subduction gets down to about 180 kilometres, then your volcanoes start popping up. So you've got your Taupo volcanic zone, your Okataina volcanic zone, White Island, Mare Island, and you've got a whole lot of submarine volcanoes between here and Samoa. I think there's about 30 of them, and a few above the surface like the Kermadecs. Because the plates are continually grinding together and building up tension, we know if there was no release of that tension, it takes about 350 years to build up enough tension for a big tsunami to occur. And they know that the last big one occurred 600 years ago here in Tauranga. So depending how much tension's been released by just slow little earthquakes, depends when the next one's due. So they're sort of not a random event, but a cyclic event. It builds up tension, releases it, builds up, releases it. And they occur, hard to say, but every sort of 600 to 1500 years we get a big one here in Tauranga. So it could happen any time from now to another few hundred years' time. That's the sort of cycle we're at. So we're at a genuine risk, and that is the major source. Lots of other little fault lines up through the Bay of Plenty, but the modelling they've done on those, they just haven't got the same energy to create the big tsunami. It takes a big earthquake to create a big tsunami, and that's the one that people worry about, the Japanese-style tsunami. So that's sort of the New Zealand model, and people talk the Kermadec Trench. The other thing, when the upward flick occurs, the energy travels at right angles to the upward flick. So Japan's trench, Japan is located here, and the waves went straight in. When we get one, the waves tend to go at right angles like that. So to a degree, East Cape protects Tauranga just a little bit, but Coromandel, Northland, Bay of Plenty get hit. So it depends where you are, depends on your risk. And if you look at Gisborne and down here, they're very close to the trench. They've maybe got 10, 15 minutes from the rupture to the wave arriving, and they've got full exposure. We've got 50 minutes. By the time you get up here, you might be up to an hour, hour and a half between the rupture and the wave arriving. So, and in terms of waves, depends on the bigger the rupture, but the maximum they're talking about is about a 10-metre type wave here in Tauranga, which is huge.
And how should we prepare ourselves for that tsunami threat?
One is understanding the risk and where you are and where in the country you are. So with our risk in Mount Papamoa is different in terms of time to different parts of the country. So it's understanding your local risk and understanding what triggers and warnings you will get. So number one is being prepared to understand the warnings. And number one, you get your natural warnings come first. And for us, because that's such a huge earthquake, the strength of the earthquake, compared to the Christchurch that did all the damage in Christchurch, the downtown Christchurch earthquake, that's about 30,000 times stronger. And the ground will shake for at least a minute, and the Japanese one went on for 5 minutes, the ground shaking. And we will feel that shaking here. So that long duration earthquake is an indication that there has been a rupture in the Kermadec Trench. And that's your number one warning. Outside that, you will start getting some informal warnings coming through. They might take a bit of time, 10, 15 minutes. But when you've got 50 minutes to play with, you've got to use all the time available. So number one, natural warnings. Number two, then official warnings could take a bit longer to occur.
Just ahead, problem gambling. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. We caught up with Cheryl from Problem Gambling for an update.
Do older people gamble?
Yeah, definitely. Just like everybody else, really. I mean, one of the surveys that we did showed that about 81% of New Zealanders will gamble in any given year. So older people are just a part of that general population of people that are gambling.
Why is it important to consider older people as a distinctive group?
I think there are particular things that apply to older people. So for retiring, it would be one of those, for example. Sometimes people are retiring and they haven't got a plan as much as they would need to be occupied, happy and healthy in their retirement. And so they might be either starting up a new hobby or looking to sort of increase the time that they're spending on their current hobbies. And if gambling's been a part of their hobbies for the rest of the time, it may become a risky thing to do. Also, there's a change in income sometimes. So there are people that retire that have a lot of resources that can then be using those for gambling, or there's people that retire and don't have much of an income and are actually hoping to win.
What modes of gambling are they involved in?
Lots of different modes of gambling are available for people for gambling, and for older people, the risky ones are pokies, as always, with everybody. But TAB gambling and online gambling, we've got a lot of older people that are engaged in internet use and research on the net, and there's lots of pop-ups and games that come up that entice people.
How does gambling become harmful to older people?
One of the things that happens, Tony, is that they lose money and they don't have the potential to earn like someone in their 20s or 30s does to replace it or to repay debt or to save. So that's a major one for older people to consider. Also, they're missing out on spending time with their friends and family, you know, when they're sort of looking forward to retirement years and thinking that they'll have more time on their hands, and that might involve, you know, grandchildren and those kinds of things. If they get distracted off into gambling and that becomes more compulsive, then they're missing out on their relationships as well.
Some people might say, well, it's up to them, they've worked all their life. If they want to gamble later in life, why not?
And if it is a choice, and it's something that they're doing very part-time and it remains just a light sort of fun activity, there's no issue with that really. It's the addictive quality of some of the gambling modes, in particular like poker gambling, that will remove people's choice once they get addicted. And so that's where we start getting worried about their well-being.
Who else is affected?
Often it is family members, you know, who are, again, they're missing out on their grandparent or parent who's become involved in gambling, and they notice that they're not present at events, family occasions, things like that, or if they are present, that they're quite distracted. And also sometimes they're supporting that person with their money. Say, for example, if an older person has lost their partner through death or separation, and they haven't managed money before, sometimes family get involved because they notice that there's issues with the money too.
What would you like people to notice?
Yeah, I think definitely if people are spending more time, like if you're a gambler and you're spending more and more time using your gambling activity instead of, you know, having more of a balanced lifestyle and being out and about and being with people, then that's something definitely to notice. Using more time and or money than you intend to spend on gambling is a key one. And if you're in a place where you're around lots of people but you're by yourself, And gee, when you look at it, you know, you're the person that's gambling, maybe just pay attention to that, because there's such a high risk of it getting out of control.
How have people found out about the service you offer at the Problem Gambling Foundation?
Yeah, well, TV interviews are great, just like this. And also radio shows that we do, and the Choice Not Chance campaign that the Health Promotion Agency has on television is great. We do presentations to groups as well. And older people are probably noticing more in the media about gambling of late. And so sometimes people are telling me that they're researching and then looking up PGF on our website, finding out more information that way. Sometimes it's family members that are approaching people and approaching us as well, and getting some advice on how to talk to the person that they're concerned about.
Are there any ways other people can get involved in the work you do?
Definitely. Getting involved locally is a great way of helping us out. Talking with friends and family, not suggesting gambling as a recreation activity is a great one, but also local politics. Like we've got Hamilton City Council are doing their policy review on gambling at the moment, and they're doing a full public consultation this time, so that's in July and August. And any members of the public are able to have their say by contacting either us or contacting Democracy at Hamilton City Council. And actually people can speak if they want to on the 29th of August in front of Council if they feel strongly. So those are great ways. Also writing to the papers and just sharing their story with people.
What's happening with the Gambling Harm Reduction Amendment Bill?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Tony, because at the moment there has been more press about it. Te Uraroa Flavell originally, of the Māori Party, originally put the bill before Parliament, and the idea, as you can tell in the title, is to actually reduce the harm that's coming from gambling and to support those of us that are working in that direction. And academics and problem gambling service providers have had a look at the recent changes to that bill, and we have all decided that it's not going to help in terms of reducing harm, which is what it's set out to do. So in actual fact, some of the effects that it would have if it was enacted now would be more pro the gambling industry. So we're actually asking for it to be withdrawn.
Visit pgfnz.org.nz if you or anyone you know is experiencing any type of problem gambling. That is the news for today. We really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook, let us know your views. If you have news including your own video and photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. I'll be here again tomorrow night with more guests from in and around our regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.